A soft breeze carried the scent of spring into Lily's apartment, where the late afternoon sunlight bathed the room in a warm golden hue. Her fingers lingered on the edge of her cup, the steam rising lazily from her half-empty coffee mug. It had been a while since she'd felt this unsettled. Even the stillness of the room felt too loud, the silence a reminder of the years spent quietly in a marriage that had begun to feel more like a routine than a partnership. The weight of her husband's absence was something she had gotten used to. Adam, her husband of 7 years, traveled for work often, spending weeks in distant cities, leaving her with an empty house and too much time on her hands. His absences were always excused by the demands of his job, and Lily, ever the dutiful wife, had learned to fill her days with books, errands, and solitary pursuits. But today, the stillness gnawed at her. She had never felt so disconnected from him. It wasn't just the physical absence. It was the emotional distance that seemed to widen with every passing day. She had grown accustomed to Adam's lack of presence, but there were moments, like this one, when the silence stretched into something almost suffocating. As Lily stared out the window, lost in her thoughts, her phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the quiet. She picked it up without thinking, almost startled by the sudden interruption. The message was from Mia, a name that sent a rush of warmth through her. "Hey, I'm back in town. Are you free to meet up? I've missed you." It had been over a decade since Lily had seen Mia. They had been inseparable as children, sharing everything from childhood secrets to dreams of the future. But life, as it often did, had pulled them in different directions. Mia had moved away after high school, chasing her own ambitions, while Lily had stayed in the city, married Adam, and quietly built a life. Mia's return to the city had been unexpected, and the thought of seeing her again stirred something in Lily, a sense of nostalgia and longing she hadn't realized she'd been missing. She didn't hesitate to reply, "I'd love to." When and where? The response was immediate. "How about that little cafe on 3rd? I'm free in an hour." Lily didn't give herself time to overthink it. She gathered her things, her heart unexpectedly quickening as she prepared to leave the house. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed Mia until that very moment. Her mind raced with memories of their childhood. Long summer days spent at the park, secret sleepovers where they whispered into the night, their hopes and fears intertwined like the pages of a shared journal. Mia had always been the wild one, the one who pushed Lily out of her comfort zone. It was Mia who had first dared her to steal a kiss from the boy she had a crush on in high school. It was Mia who had convinced her to skip school that one Friday afternoon and drive to the beach with the windows down, singing at the top of their lungs. As she walked to the cafe, Lily felt a strange mixture of excitement and unease. She wasn't sure what to expect. Would they still have that easy connection, the unspoken understanding that had once bound them so tightly? Or had time, and the years that had passed, changed everything? The cafe was small and intimate, the air filled with the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the soft hum of conversations around her. When she entered, her eyes immediately found Mia, sitting at a table by the window. The moment their gazes met, something shifted. Mia had changed, of course. She was older, more polished, but the spark in her eyes was unmistakable. It was the same spark Lily had once admired, the one that had made her feel alive when they were young. Mia stood and embraced her warmly, her laugh ringing out like a familiar melody. "Lily, it's really you. I can't believe it's been so long." Lily smiled, feeling a rush of emotions she hadn't anticipated. "I know. It feels like a lifetime." They sat down, and the conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed at all. Mia was still the same, quick-witted, adventurous, and full of life. She spoke of her travels, her career, and the changes that had come with age, but there was a lightness to her that made Lily feel as though they were back in their teenage years, laughing and dreaming without a care in the world. Mia's presence, warm and effervescent, filled the space around them, drawing Lily in like a magnet. As the conversation turned more personal, Lily found herself confiding in Mia in a way she hadn't with anyone in years. She told her about Adam's frequent absences, the way their once vibrant marriage had become a quiet, predictable rhythm. She spoke of her loneliness, the way the house sometimes felt too big, too empty. She didn't mention the underlying dissatisfaction, the slow-burning realization that she and Adam had drifted apart in ways that weren't just physical. That would be too much for Mia, who had always been the carefree one, never one to settle down into a quiet life like Lily had. Mia listened, her expression softening as she took in Lily's words. "I had no idea you were feeling like this," Mia said quietly. "You deserve so much more, you know. You've always had this incredible energy, and now, I don't know, it just feels like you've been holding it in for too long." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest at Mia's words. It had been so long since anyone had seen her like that, truly seen her. Adam was attentive, but not in a way that truly understood her needs. Mia's words hit a nerve, stirring up something deep within her that she hadn't acknowledged in years. She wasn't sure what exactly it was, but it felt like a spark, an awakening. Over the next few hours, the conversation shifted from past memories to present realities. They spoke of their shared childhood, the experiences they had forgotten, and the paths they had taken that had ultimately separated them. Yet despite the years, it was clear that the connection between them had not dimmed. There was a quiet understanding, an intimacy that lingered between them, unspoken but powerful. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt seen in a way she had longed for. She was reminded of the girl she used to be, the one with dreams and hopes, the one who laughed without restraint and lived without the weight of responsibility. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden light over the cafe, Mia reached across the table, her hand brushing lightly against Lily's. The touch was gentle but charged with something else, something that lingered between them like an unspoken invitation. "Let's not wait another decade before we do this again," Mia said with a smile, her voice soft but sincere. Lily smiled, nodding. "I'd like that." But as she stood to leave, her heart fluttered uneasily. There was something in the air, something between them that she hadn't expected. Mia's touch, though fleeting, had ignited something inside her, something that wasn't just the warm nostalgia of their childhood friendship. There was something more, something that tugged at her in a way she couldn't yet name. She pushed the thought aside, telling herself it was just the excitement of seeing an old friend again. Yet as they parted ways outside the cafe, Lily's thoughts were anything but clear. Her phone buzzed again as she walked back to her car, this time with a message from Adam, asking when she would be home. She glanced at it but didn't reply immediately. As she drove home, the road seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of her. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Mia, to the way their connection had sparked once again with such ease, and the strange, unfamiliar feeling that had begun to grow inside her. For the first time in years, Lily felt the stirring of something she hadn't known she was missing. But as she pulled into her driveway and stepped into the quiet house, she was reminded once more of the life she had built with Adam. The life that, for all its comforts, had begun to feel like something she was slowly outgrowing. Her reunion with Mia had awakened something deep inside her, and she couldn't help but wonder, what would become of it? The days that followed Lily's reunion with Mia were filled with a strange mixture of exhilaration and guilt. She hadn't realized how much she had missed Mia's presence until they had been together again, and now, every moment that passed without seeing her felt like an eternity. Mia, always the free spirit, had settled back into the city with an energy that was both infectious and unsettling. She didn't waste time, sending Lily texts with quick, light-hearted updates and invitations for impromptu outings. Their conversations, which once flowed so easily over cups of coffee, now felt like a thread woven through the fabric of her days. Each text from Mia was a small breath of air in a room that had been growing increasingly suffocating. Lily's life with Adam had been comfortable but predictable, a slow fade into routine that had left her with a sense of quiet longing. She had never questioned her marriage before. It had always seemed like the natural path, a steady progression from childhood to adulthood. But Mia's reappearance had introduced an element of unpredictability, a spark that had reignited a part of her she hadn't realized was buried. They met again a few days later, at the same cafe, this time without the rush of nostalgia that had initially colored their reunion. There was a sense of familiarity, yes, but also something new, an unspoken tension that seemed to hum between them, just beneath the surface. Mia was the first to break the silence, her smile both inviting and unreadable. "Are you okay?" Mia asked, her eyes locking onto Lily's with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "You've been quieter than usual." Lily shifted in her seat, suddenly aware of the weight of her own emotions. It wasn't just the content of their conversations that had changed. It was the way she felt when she was around Mia. It was the way her heart raced a little too quickly when their hands brushed as they passed the sugar bowl, or the way her breath caught when Mia looked at her with that familiar warmth in her eyes. She had never noticed before how powerful Mia's gaze could be, how it seemed to see through her, through the surface of the woman she had become and straight into something deeper, something she hadn't been ready to face. "I'm just thinking," Lily said, forcing a smile to mask the unease that twisted in her stomach. Mia's lips quirked into a knowing smile. "Thinking about Adam?" she asked, her voice gentle but pointed. Lily felt a sharp pang in her chest, as if Mia had reached inside her and pulled out a secret she hadn't realized she was keeping. "I'm just adjusting, I guess. I didn't expect to feel so. I don't know, unsettled," she admitted, the words coming out in a rush. Mia leaned forward slightly, her hand moving instinctively toward Lily's. "You've been in this marriage for so long. It's natural to feel like things have changed, especially when you're finally seeing things from a different perspective. You deserve to feel alive again." Lily's heart skipped a beat. Her gaze flickered down to Mia's hand, which was now hovering just inches from her own. It was an innocent gesture, one that could be easily dismissed as a moment of empathy, but it felt charged with something more. Her skin tingled, and she had to fight the urge to reach out and close the distance. "You don't think I'm being ridiculous?" Lily asked, her voice quieter now, as if she were afraid of the weight of her own words. Mia's eyes softened, and she shook her head slowly. "No, I don't think you're being ridiculous at all. I think you're finally waking up to what you really need." The way Mia said it sent a ripple through Lily. It wasn't just a declaration of understanding, it felt like an invitation. An invitation to cross a line she hadn't known she was standing so close to. The next few days passed in a blur of muted emotions. Every interaction with Mia seemed to leave an echo in Lily's chest, a faint, uncomfortable longing that refused to be ignored. They texted each other late into the night, shared memories of their youth, and talked about the way their lives had shifted in the years they had been apart. With every message, Lily found herself drawn deeper into the emotional pull between them. There was something magnetic in the way Mia expressed herself, something raw and unfiltered that Lily found both refreshing and dangerous. One evening, Mia suggested they go for a walk in the park near Lily's apartment. The weather was mild, and the world outside seemed to hum with the energy of spring. The trees were in full bloom, and the path was scattered with petals. They walked side by side, the quiet between them filled with an unspoken understanding. "You seem different," Mia said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. Lily glanced at her, surprised by the sharpness of the observation. "Different how?" Mia smiled faintly, her gaze turning thoughtful. "You seem freer in a way. More open. Like you've been holding back for so long, and now you're letting go." Lily swallowed hard. The weight of Mia's words felt like a revelation, but not in the way Mia intended. She had spent years living within the boundaries of her marriage, within the confines of what was expected of her. But now, with Mia standing beside her, the boundaries were beginning to blur. She couldn't deny it. She had been holding back. From her marriage, from her own desires, from the parts of herself that she had long buried. As they walked, their pace slowed, and they came to a quiet spot by the water. The reflection of the moonlight danced across the surface, and for a moment, everything seemed suspended in time. Mia stopped walking and turned to face her. The air between them thickened, charged with something neither of them had spoken aloud but both clearly felt. Mia reached out, her fingers brushing the side of Lily's arm, and the touch was gentle, lingering. It wasn't just the brush of a friend's hand. It was something else, something that spoke of the tension they both felt but hadn't dared address. Lily's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, everything seemed to shift. She wanted to pull away, to retreat back into the safety of her predictable life, but something in her hesitated. Mia's presence, her closeness, felt both comforting and intoxicating. She didn't know what it was, but she felt herself leaning closer, as though her body was reacting before her mind could catch up. "I've missed this," Mia whispered, her voice low, barely audible over the sound of the water. "Missed us? Missed you." The words hung in the air, a confession wrapped in the softness of the night. Lily felt her heart race, her pulse quicken. She knew what Mia was saying, and it was both dangerous and irresistible. "I've missed you too," Lily replied, her voice barely more than a breath. Mia took a small step forward, closing the space between them. "I've always wondered what would have happened if we hadn't lost touch," she said. Her eyes locked onto Lily's with an intensity that made her knees weak. What if we'd stayed this close all along?" Lily's throat went dry. What if? She hadn't even allowed herself to entertain such thoughts. But now, with Mia standing so close, her presence so undeniable, it was hard to ignore the truth of what she felt. She was drawn to Mia, not just emotionally, but in a way that was raw and unfamiliar. Before she could answer, Mia's hand slipped gently to the back of Lily's neck, her fingers threading through her hair, and for the briefest of moments, Lily felt the world around her fall away. There was no Adam, no marriage, no life that had been carefully constructed over the years. There was only Mia. Lily closed her eyes, her breath catching in her throat. The pull between them was undeniable, a force that seemed to transcend the boundaries of friendship. She wanted to step back, to keep herself safe, but she couldn't. She was already too far gone. Lily's life had become a delicate balance, teetering on the edge between the comfort of the familiar and the allure of something unknown. Her time with Mia had brought back emotions and desires she hadn't realized she had buried so deep. Every encounter with her friend was a pull, a push, and the lines between what was right and what she wanted blurred with every passing day. As the weeks went on, the weight of her internal conflict grew heavier until it threatened to suffocate her. Her husband, Adam, had been home more frequently, but his presence seemed to highlight the distance that had always been there. His job, his travels, and his endless meetings had created a space between them that no amount of time together could fill. When he was around, Lily found herself distracted, her mind drifting back to Mia, to the warmth that had blossomed between them. She found herself increasingly irritated by Adam's attempts at affection, his words of love that felt hollow in her ears. She wanted to be closer to him, but she wasn't sure how to bridge the gap anymore. It had started as innocent, almost unnoticeable moments, shared glances, lingering touches, and quiet exchanges that spoke louder than words. But with Mia, every encounter left Lily feeling both alive and guilty, as though she was betraying something she couldn't quite name. She had tried to deny the growing pull between them, but with each passing day, it became harder to ignore. The emotional intimacy that had blossomed between her and Mia felt like a slow-moving storm, gathering strength, until one day, it would inevitably break. The moment it happened had been inevitable. It had been building for weeks, woven into every conversation, every touch, every look. It wasn't the first time they'd been alone together in a setting that allowed for intimacy, but this time it was different. It was a Tuesday evening, the golden light of the setting sun spilling through the windows of Mia's apartment. Lily had been reluctant to go. She had promised Adam she would be home early, but the idea of another quiet evening at home felt suffocating. Mia greeted her at the door with a warm hug, her smile bright, but there was something in her eyes that felt different, as though she too had felt the tension building. They talked at first, easily slipping into the rhythm of their old friendship, but there was an unspoken weight between them, a palpable charge in the air that neither could ignore. Every word, every gesture, felt loaded with meaning. And when Mia leaned in a little too close as they stood in the kitchen, passing the wine glass between them, it was clear that something had shifted. "I don't think I can keep pretending I don't feel this," Mia said softly, her voice a whisper against the hum of the city outside. Lily's heart raced. She had known this moment was coming, yet she still wasn't prepared. She stepped back instinctively, her mind screaming for distance, but her body was already betraying her. "Mia, we can't." Her voice was shaky, unsure of what she even meant. The weight of the words that had been left unspoken now hovered between them, and she realized that denying the truth any longer was becoming impossible. "I don't want to keep pretending either," Mia replied, her voice firm but tender. "I've missed you in ways I can't explain. And I see you, Lily. The way you are with me, the way you are when Adam isn't around. There's something here, something more than just friendship." Lily's breath hitched in her throat. The intensity in Mia's gaze was undeniable, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully. She was no longer just the woman who had been caught in the web of a failing marriage. She was a woman who was desired, wanted, by the one person who truly saw her, who truly understood the parts of her that Adam had long stopped noticing. The tension between them grew, charged and thick. Lily's fingers trembled as she set her wine glass down, the cool surface of the glass grounding her in a way that felt strangely comforting. "Mia, this is wrong," she whispered, the words coming out as a plea, even though a part of her wanted to stop fighting it. The other part, her rational, logical self, knew that this was dangerous, that stepping over this line would change everything. Mia took a step closer, her breath mingling with Lily's, warm and soft. "What's wrong, Lily? What's so wrong with feeling this? With being honest about what's happening between us?" She reached for Lily's hand, her touch warm and gentle. Lily hesitated, torn between the life she had built and the life that now called to her with an intensity she couldn't ignore. She thought of Adam, his absence, his distracted affection. But the thought of her marriage seemed like a distant echo when Mia's eyes locked onto hers with such raw longing. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself, but when she opened them again, Mia was standing so close, her lips just inches from hers. Everything inside Lily told her to pull away, to stop this before it went any further, but the pull was too strong. Mia leaned in, her lips brushing against Lily's with a tenderness that felt like an apology and an invitation all at once. The moment their lips met, time seemed to stop. It was soft at first, tentative, uncertain, but when Mia's hands cupped Lily's face, it became deeper, more urgent. Lily's heart pounded in her chest, every nerve in her body screaming for more. She didn't pull away. She didn't stop. In that moment, the world outside of them ceased to exist. There was only Mia. Lily's mind spun, torn between guilt and desire. What was she doing? What was this? She had promised herself she wouldn't cross this line, but now it felt impossible to turn back. When Mia's hands slid down to her waist, pulling her closer, Lily felt herself melting into the kiss, surrendering to the warmth that had been building between them for so long. It wasn't until they broke apart, gasping for air, that the gravity of what had just happened hit Lily. She stepped back, her mind reeling, her heart pounding in her chest. "We can't," she whispered, but the words felt hollow now, a last attempt at resistance. She could no longer deny what had just passed between them. It had happened, and in that moment, Lily realized there was no going back. The line had been crossed. Mia's expression softened, her hand reaching for Lily's once more. "I know this isn't easy," she said gently, "but this, what we have, it's real. And you can't keep pretending it's not." Lily felt a sharp pang in her chest. She wanted to believe Mia. She wanted to believe that this passion, this connection, was something that could fill the emptiness she had felt for so long. But the reality of her life, her marriage, stood in the way. She couldn't deny that what she and Adam had shared was slipping away, fading into something unrecognizable. But what did that mean for her now? Her heart was heavy with the weight of the choices that lay before her. She could no longer deny the truth that had slowly unraveled itself in her mind. Mia was no longer just a friend. She was something more, something that Lily didn't know how to navigate, but something she couldn't let go of. "I don't know what to do," Lily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Mia reached out, her touch gentle but firm. "You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just know that I'm here, Lily. And I'm not going anywhere." Lily closed her eyes, her breath shaky, as she tried to gather her thoughts. She had just crossed a line she had never expected to cross. And now there was no way back. Lily barely slept that night. Every time her mind tried to drift into oblivion, the memory of Mia's touch, her kiss, and the weight of the choices she had just made came crashing back. She lay there, her mind racing, her heart torn between the life she had built and the one she found herself drawn into, a life that felt both thrilling and terrifying in its uncertainty. The guilt gnawed at her, but so did the desire, the yearning that had been building for so long. The next morning, Lily's world felt disorienting. Adam had left early for another business trip, his absence now carrying a weight that seemed to suffocate her. She moved through the motions of her day, but her thoughts were constantly drifting back to Mia, to their kiss, to the unbearable intensity of the moment they had shared. She hadn't planned on this. She hadn't meant to fall into this. She tried to focus on the mundane details of her life, checking emails, preparing meals, tidying up the house, but every action felt hollow, like a mask over the truth that was now emerging. The guilt was there, pressing in on her, but beneath it was something else, a nagging sense of freedom. She couldn't deny it any longer. She had felt something real with Mia, something she had never experienced with Adam. The connection was undeniable, raw and unspoken, something that had been growing under the surface for years. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and Lily's heart skipped a beat when she saw Mia's name on the screen. She picked it up immediately, her hands trembling. "Hey!" Mia's voice was soft, almost hesitant. "How are you?" Lily leaned against the counter, closing her eyes. "I don't know. I keep thinking about last night. What we did." Mia was silent for a moment, and Lily could hear the soft sound of her breathing on the other end. "I don't regret it," Mia finally said, her voice steady. "I just want you to be okay. I know this is complicated, Lily, but I can't pretend I don't want you. Not anymore." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to argue, to say that it was too messy, too risky, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, all she could do was nod, even though Mia couldn't see it. She was caught in the space between her old life and the life that was now tempting her. "What are we doing, Mia?" Lily's voice trembled, the weight of the question hanging heavily in the air. "I don't know," Mia said, her tone low, but filled with a quiet resolve. "But I know this isn't just a fling. It's not just some passing attraction. It's something real. And I'm not going to apologize for wanting you." Lily felt the tears rise in her eyes, though she had no idea why. This was what she had wanted, wasn't it? She had dreamed of something like this for so long. But now that it was here, it felt as though it was slipping through her fingers, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Her marriage, her life, everything she had known was crumbling under the weight of her desire. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly, her voice shaking. Mia didn't say anything for a long moment, as if letting Lily's words settle between them. "You don't have to decide anything right now, Lily. But I want you to know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." It was the truth that hit hardest. Mia's unwavering certainty, her clear desire to be by her side no matter the cost, was both comforting and terrifying. Lily had spent her life trying to avoid making difficult choices, trying to hold everything together, but now the truth was inescapable. She couldn't go back. She couldn't pretend she hadn't crossed the line. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, Lily found herself at the park where she and Mia had walked weeks before. She had told herself she needed some air, some space to think. But deep down, she knew she was only there to avoid the inevitable confrontation that loomed at home. Adam would be back tomorrow, and she would have to face him. She would have to face the life she had carefully constructed, the life she was no longer sure she wanted. As she walked along the winding path, her mind wandered to the night she had spent with Mia, to the kiss, to the words they had exchanged. The passion had been real, so real it had overwhelmed her in a way she hadn't expected. It was more than just physical attraction. It was emotional. It was the culmination of years of longing, of being seen by someone in a way she hadn't been seen in years. The connection between them was undeniable, and it had changed everything. But then there was Adam, her husband, her partner, the man who had been her constant for so many years. She thought of his kindness, his patience, his quiet affection. She thought of the way he had always been there for her, how they had built a life together, brick by brick. He didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to have his world shattered, especially not by someone who had pledged to be loyal to him, to honor their vows. Lily sat down on the park bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The weight of it all was suffocating. She couldn't go back to the way things were, not after what had happened. But could she truly walk away from everything she had built? Could she turn her back on Adam? Could she walk away from the life she had always known in exchange for something so uncertain, so unpredictable? Her phone buzzed again, and she almost didn't want to look at it, but her fingers betrayed her. It was Mia. "Are you okay?" The question seemed to cut right through her. The problem wasn't Mia. The problem was the life she had with Adam. The life that felt like it was slipping through her fingers as she reached for something that felt so much more real. Mia wanted her. Mia had always wanted her. But was that enough? Could love, or whatever it was that passed between them, be enough to justify the pain she knew would follow? Lily sat there for a long time, lost in thought, before the decision became clear. There were no easy answers, no perfect choices. But there was only the truth. She had to choose. She had to decide whether she would continue to live in the comfortable prison of her marriage, or if she would risk it all for the chance at something new, something real, something that made her feel truly alive. The sound of footsteps approaching brought Lily back to the present. She looked up to see Mia standing a few feet away, her gaze searching, waiting for her. "Mia," Lily said softly, standing up. "I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how to fix this." Mia smiled, a bittersweet smile that held a world of understanding. "You don't have to fix anything, Lily. You just have to decide." Lily swallowed hard, the finality of her words settling over her. "I know. I just don't know what to do." Mia took a step closer, her hand brushing gently against Lily's. "Take your time. Whatever you decide, I'm here." Lily closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel the warmth of Mia's touch, the softness of her presence. She knew the next step would change everything. It wasn't about the decision itself, it was about what it meant for her, for Adam, for the life she had built and the life she wanted to build. But one thing was certain. She couldn't keep pretending anymore.